I bought one of the most expensive houses in my area.
This house was originally on the market for £775,000 and I agreed to buy it for £700,000. The property market has been a bit of a roller coaster at the moment, so I hope I've done the right thing. My plan with this house is to convert it into a number of apartments by doing a double story, side, rear and a further single story extension. I was really struggling to find a strategy that would work in the current climate, but settled on buying expensive detached houses for the following reasons. Detached houses usually come with more space so that you can meet the parking and outdoor space requirements when converting these into apartments. Because of the increase in interest rates, detached houses have been taking longer to sell, and so at the moment represent good value because homeowners have been a lot more cautious, meaning that owners have been more prepared than ever to negotiate on the price. I realised this type of project is lower risk, which was very important to me in the current climate. The structure is already there, so I'm hoping that we will save time in terms of the build costs and the time it takes to turn it around. The community infrastructure levy, which is basically a tax you have to pay when developing, is massively reduced as the existing structure is not included in the calculation. I hope to hold on to these apartments once finished, but that might prove challenging with where the market is at the moment, as refinancing onto buy-to-let mortgages is challenging at the moment. So I'm more than happy to sell some and hold some to reduce the amount of money I have left in this project. I've also come up with a genius idea which will allow me to hold on to these apartments, which I will talk about later on in this video. Initial options. When I first saw this property, I thought there were only really two options. First option. The first option was to demolish the existing house and to rebuild a new block of 8 apartments. Let me show you. So my architect was saying that we would be able to get 8 apartments, with all the apartments being over 50 square meters, which is the space needed according to the minimum space standards for a 1-bedroom flat. So the existing access point is here. So there would be a new access point and a dropped curb at the front of the building. This would allow for 8 parking spaces. There would be a communal garden at the rear of the property. My architect also shows the 45-degree rule being applied, which looks at the impact on the neighbouring properties from their windows, which shows that the build doesn't impact the neighbours. So in this instance, this is the neighbouring property, and this is the 45-degree line going here, and from this window it would go here. When I explored this option with my bridging broker, I soon realized that this option would not be feasible. My broker was saying that this was the second riskiest type of development, so the loan to value was likely to be reduced to 50% loan to value. So that would mean I would need to find a lot more money just to buy this property. The riskiest type of development, he said, was when you buy land without planning permission. So in this instance, the bridging lender has very little security, as it's just the value of the land that is in place. By demolishing the existing house, there would be no security for the lender, and therefore the only security would be the land, which would be worth a lot less without the house on it. The other issue was the amount of money and time needed for the development in relation to this scheme. So it would have taken a lot more money, as I would have had to demolish the existing house and start again. It would have taken longer as a result as well. The final nail in the coffin for this scheme was the amount of community infrastructure levy due. This is a type of tax that council charges to developers for developing property. When you demolish a site and start again, the SIL payments due start from 0. But when you extend or modify an existing building, then the amount due is based on the additional area added. The second option. The second option we looked at was again demolishing the house and building 3 4-bedroom houses. We felt the 4-bedroom houses would attract a premium rather than having a bigger 3-bedroom house. So on this one, the parking spaces were shown at the front with enough space to reverse out of the site. The houses were shown staggered. They were shown staggered to reduce the impact on the neighbouring properties. The minimum space standards needed for each house was 115 square meters, and the houses shown by my architect were 122 square meters each. The gardens needed to be a minimum of 50 square meters, and then with a minimum depth of 10 meters from the rear elevation to the back of the site, which was achieved here as well. The main issue with this scheme was that we wouldn't have been able to hold on to these houses because the rental stress testing wouldn't have worked, as they are in a very desirable area, and therefore they would have had high capital values when compared to the rental value. We are trying to build a portfolio, and so had to go back to the drawing board. The other issue was again the amount of money, time and the SIL payments that would be due in this particular scheme, the third option. The final option we explored was using the existing structure and looking at how we could add space in order to get 6 apartments in there. We realized that we could do a double-story side, rear and further single-story extension in order to get the space for the apartments needed. Although this met all the planning policy requirements in terms of parking and amenity space provided, the council's planning officers felt it was overdevelopment. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to argue against this, so we had to compromise and we agreed to go ahead with 5 apartments but with a different bedroom mix consisting of 2 2-bedroom apartments and 3 1-bedroom apartments. So we lost an apartment where we would have had 6 bedrooms in total, but we gained in terms of the 2-bedroom apartments, resulting in a total of 7 bedrooms. There were lots of comments in relation to our application, 13 in total, and so this was referred to the planning committee. This was meant to be heard in the June planning committee, but that committee meeting got cancelled, and so we had to wait until July to see the outcome. It went to the July committee, and I'm glad to say we received approval. We had 8 people vote for the development and 3 against. I haven't seen many people, if any, post any planning committee meetings, so I will post this on my YouTube channel. In the current climate, this seemed to be the best solution. By using the existing structure, we realised the following. The community infrastructure levy would be reduced as the existing structure wouldn't be included in the calculation. The time taken to complete the project should be reduced because the existing structure was going to remain, and we only needed to do a double-story side, rear and a further single-story extension. Costs. The overall cost should be reduced as well, as we will not be demolishing the building and using the existing structure. The bridging costs and the refurbishment costs needed should also be less. Time. The time to complete the project should be shorter when compared to a demolish and rebuild of a new build structure. As you can see, it did take some iterations before we were able to bed down a strategy that would work, and to a certain extent, property investing is all about trying to add as much value as possible. I mentioned earlier on in this video that I had a genius idea which would allow me to hold on to these apartments in the medium term. If you've been following my property investing journey, then you will know that I used to convert 1-bedroom apartments in central London into 2-bedroom apartments. If you haven't, then check out my videos on the projects I've completed. I've completed projects in London Bridge, Vauxhall, Battersea, Brixton and West Hampstead. So if you look at the current layout of these apartments, the apartments are good sizes, and what I plan to do in the medium term is to do an internal reconfiguration. So turning the 1-bedroom apartments into 2-bedroom apartments and the 2-bedroom apartments into 3-bedroom apartments. All I need to do for this is to ensure that each of the bedrooms have a window and ensure I get consent from the freeholder for the reconfiguration. Of course, I am the freeholder, so I will give consent. I haven't decided if I would do this, but I just wanted to share with you ways in which you could add value, especially in the current market. So changing the 1-bedroom apartments into 2-bedroom apartments and 2-bedroom apartments into 3-bedroom apartments, I could add an additional £375,000 onto the end value of this development. Just to be clear, this will be in the future, so as it stands, I will build out the apartments as I've got permission for. But I will be looking at the layouts now to ensure if I do decide in the future to change the internal layout, then I won't have to relocate a kitchen or a bathroom. I haven't decided if I will go ahead with this, as it will depend on where the market is once it finishes, but I'm hoping by then rates come down slightly and then there'll be more lenders in the market offering 75 to 80% loan to value products. Property investing is a long-term investment. At the moment, it might be difficult to refinance at 75 to 80% loan to value, but those times will come back, and when they do, I will make sure that I've added value so that I can go on to refinance and release some more money. I saw this Facebook post which someone said that if you give up on a particular property investing strategy, then you have failed. To a certain extent, I agree. If you give up on a strategy you have just started, then yes, maybe you have failed. But if you have the right reasons, then definitely not. I used to invest in 3-bedroom terraced properties, then switched to buying 2-bedroom houses that I could convert into 3-bedroom houses. I switched again because I wanted to invest in central London and started buying 1-bedroom flats, which I converted into 2-bedroom flats. Because of COVID, I had to switch my strategy again to buying property locally, and the only thing I could get to work was converting terraced houses into flats. I wanted to do bigger projects and so found mixed use commercial unit, which I converted into 4 apartments. And after that, I wanted to see how I could do more, and so fell on this strategy of converting detached houses into multiple apartments. Am I failing? Maybe. Should I keep focusing on one strategy, such as converting terraced houses into only 2 flats? Maybe. For me, as long as I have good reasons for following the strategy I feel like I'm doing the right thing. Let's see where we end up with this project. I'll keep you posted with the refurbishment as it progresses.